Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Brown County Library interviewing candidates in the 2014 elections. We're interviewing Mr. Dean DeBroux of De Pere. He's a Democrat running in Senate District 1. Dean, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
And Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. First-time candidate, sir?
Yes, I am.
Give us a short version of your background.
Sure. Well, I've been a special education teacher for the last 20 years, and before that I worked in a factory for 8 years as a welder and a die caster and machine operator. Then I went back to college later in life and worked my way through college by doing roofing and construction work, and actually started my own roofing and siding business, and got so busy my brother joined with me, and he ran the business for a while. Then after I finished my college degree and went into the classroom. Also served for 20 years in the Wisconsin National Guard. So I have a lot of different experiences that I believe I can bring to the political realm.
And what are you doing now in terms of a career? Is it?
I'm a special education teacher right now.
Okay, you're
yes.
right now. In which district?
In Ashwaubenon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any special factors or issues bring you into the Senate race, sir?
Well, the last 4 years, I believe this legislature has taken the state in the wrong direction. Walking away from our public schools and not producing the type of economy that Wisconsin is proud of, and we should be performing better than we are, and that's why I decided to get in this race, and it's for working people and middle class people.
Can you elaborate on the walking away from the public schools, Mr. DeBroux?
Yes, well, we cut $1.6 billion out of public education, and at the same time funneled millions of dollars into a private school system, a voucher system that is totally unaccountable. So essentially we have two dueling school systems right now that taxpayers are paying for. They're paying for the brick and mortar school that is in their neighborhood, and then they're also paying for this private voucher program that has never been proven to be any better than the public schools. And we have 20 years of experience with the voucher system in Milwaukee, and when the students are tested on an equal footing, the public schools still perform better than the voucher schools do.
Well, if you're in the Senate, and one of the biggest items obviously is aid to schools in the next state budget, you're going to work to do what in terms of both of these areas? Well,
I support Superintendent Tony Evers' Fair Funding for Education program.
Okay.
We're funding schools right now. We have districts right here in Senate District 1 that are declining enrollment districts, and they're high property value districts but low income. So the people who actually live in those districts have a hard time meeting the needs of the school district, so we need to take a look at how we fund these schools. What happened is, back in 1993-94, the state put a revenue cap in place and essentially locked all the school districts into the funding levels that they were at in 1993 and 94. So if you were a high-spending school district, you were locked into those levels. If you were a low-spending school district, you were locked into the lower spending levels and never had an opportunity to catch up or make up ground.
Well, since you oppose the Choice and Vouchers program, in the next state budget, do you want to wipe it out entirely? Do you want to keep it going in the city of Milwaukee, where it's been existing more than 25 years? You would specifically seek what on vouchers and choice?
I think it should be phased out over time.
Over how many years?
I think we could work with the other side to come up with a reasonable solution for that. So we do it in a fair way.
You'd like to phase it out statewide, even
Yes.
in Milwaukee and
Yes.
The city of Racine?
Right.
Okay. Over the summer, as a teacher, the governor called for the repeal or withdrawal from the Common Core standards. Your position on that?
The Common Core are standards for math and English. and we've spent millions of dollars to implement them. School districts have been working for a long time to match their curriculums to the standards, and also match the testing to the standards and so forth. It would be irresponsible to walk away from them at this point. What we should do is implement them, and we need standards, and we need to know that if a student moves from one district to another district, that they can essentially pick up right where they left off at the other school. It makes the system more efficient. So we need to stick with the Common Core and implement it. And then if there's small issues, which there will be, we need to tweak it and modify it as we go along, like we always do.
As a special ed teacher, what's been the impact of Act 10 that you've seen in your school district?
We've seen larger class sizes in the high school, and it's more difficult to differentiate instruction for students when you have larger class sizes, and a reduction in staff. So we have less staff to work with a larger number of students and less resources. And then we've also seen many of our most experienced teachers leave the field. And it's getting harder and harder to replace those teachers. And I was just talking with some directors of special education, and this summer particularly, it's been very difficult to fill vacant special education positions. And there's less people going into the School of Education. So we're going to have a teacher shortage in the not too near future.
If you're in the Senate, would you would you try to repeal all of Act 10 or just parts of it?
During the Act 10 legislation, and when that was being enacted, I worked very hard and advocated against Act 10. I didn't think it was a good law. I didn't think it was good public policy, so I think we should repeal it and replace it.
Okay, let's talk about transportation funding. The Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance says if we fund transportation at 2013 levels for 10 years, we're facing a deficit of $2 billion. How should any deficit be made up, sir?
Well, first of all, I think what we need to do is stop rating the fund in the first place, and we never should have rated the fund. When we collect taxes for a specific purpose, that's what those revenues should be spent on. Going forward, I think we need to look at basically, I'm willing to work with the other side and come up with solutions that might be outside the box. Years ago, the gas tax was indexed. I'd be willing to take a look at something like that. But I think there's other alternatives that we could look at as well. Okay. But we just have to make sure that the impact is not drastically pushed onto the middle class.
Okay. Let's talk about health care. 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care from our Medicaid program. The American Hospital Association says our reimbursement rates are second from the bottom. Do you think it's time to raise those reimbursement rates?
Well, first of all, I think the legislature was extremely irresponsible in not taking the federal Medicaid money
to expand
MA in the first place, and that would have provided access to medical services for about 80,000 more people. And as far as the reimbursement rates, we need to make sure that our reimbursement rates keep pace with the cost of medicine and providing those services so that doctors and hospitals can afford to provide them.
The Legislative Fiscal Bureau just came out a few minutes ago with a projection that we face a deficit because of slow economic growth and the 3 tax cuts. If we face a deficit in the next biennial budget and you're a senator, how would you make that up, sir?
Well, first of all, again, the legislature passed an irresponsible tax cut that was based on projections, not reality, and they never should have done that. And we need to make sure that when we're making decisions, it's based on hard fact and cash in hand, so to say. To fix the budget, I think we need to look at tax loopholes and close tax loopholes to make sure that we're collecting enough revenue from a lot of the corporations that aren't paying their fair share, that are prospering from the resources from Wisconsin and the infrastructure that we provide. We just need to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share so we have a level playing field.
There'll be a bill introduced to legalize medical marijuana. Colorado and state of Washington now have legalized recreational marijuana. Your positions on those?
I believe that those medical decisions should be between a patient and a doctor, and that people in Madison shouldn't stand in the way of that. As far as recreational marijuana, I think we should take a look and see what's happening in these other states and make a judgment as to whether or not we should go down that road.
The mining bill that passed early last session is still being debated in the Capitol. That's the one that would potentially allow Go Giebig Taconite to seek a permit up in Ashland and Iron County. Would you have voted for that?
I think the legislature was irresponsible in the process that they used to develop that regulation. There essentially was one group sitting at the table when they wrote that legislation, and that was the mining company. When we write laws, we need to make sure that we have more voices at the table than just one party, and that we also have create an opportunity for citizens to comment so that everybody knows what they're voting on and the legislature has time to get feedback from the citizens on those laws. So I would not have supported that law.
It's not an issue in Senate District 1, but the explosion of frac sand mining in western Wisconsin has developed this issue in the Capitol. Should state government enact one set of standards for frac sand mines and local governments couldn't enact anything tougher? Or is that a local control issue, Mr. DeBroux?
I believe in local control to the fullest extent possible. Times that local control might not make sense is if you can find efficiencies and do things at less cost but have the same services provided. In those cases, I think it makes sense to go outside of local authority. But for the most part, I believe in local control.
Okay. First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime, sir?
I'm very concerned about drunk driving in the state of Wisconsin. It has a long history of alcohol issues, and we need to do more to make sure that people are not drinking and driving under the influence. I'm concerned, however, about making it a crime and having that on somebody's record essentially for the rest of their life if they make a mistake at a young time in their life.
As a first-time candidate, as you go around the Senate District 1, is the biggest issue people are talking about our public schools or other issues?
Public schools is at the top, so it's usually the school funding or the economy.
Okay. And finally, you want to highlight any differences between you and the incumbent?
Well, absolutely. And for instance, right now in northeast Wisconsin, we have a serious groundwater issue that needs to be dealt with. And my opponent has essentially stuck his head in the sand and doesn't even want to acknowledge that it's a problem. And as you know, the first step to solving a problem is first admitting that there is one. And I think it's time that we roll our sleeves up and get to work and find out the source of these pollutants that are entering our groundwater and our lakes, and then come up with common sense solutions so that we can farm and have jobs and industry, but protect our lakes and streams and forests at the same time.
The large cattle operations, that seems to be an issue in the Senate District 1, doesn't it?
I think it's an issue outside the Senate District as well. It's an issue in other counties and other areas of the state, and it's something that we need to address. We went through an industrial revolution in the last century, and at the end of that, we had dumped lots of pollutants and chemicals and things into our lakes and rivers, and then we learned, and we figured out that wasn't a good thing to do. And I think we're now going through a farming industrial revolution, and we need to not make the same mistakes that we made in the past, and let's do this smart to make sure that farmers can farm, but we also protect our lakes and rivers and streams at the same time.
Okay. Any other differences between you and your opponent?
A key difference, too, is I'm running to represent the people, and to do what's best for people. I have a lifelong history of serving the community through my service in the Wisconsin National Guard, my career as a special education teacher, coaching youth sports. So this is an extension to serving the community. And I believe my opponent is self-serving and passing laws that benefit himself and his own special interests.
Okay, thank you. Dean DeBroux of De Pere, is the Democratic candidate in Senate District 1. Dean, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.